Hey everybody, I'm Robb Ryerse, alongside Mike Papacoda.
Hey everyone.
We are the Bowtie Sales Guys. We
Definitely are.
yeah, we have this is a podcast we have been talking about doing for years. Mike and
Yeah.
I have, over coffee or cigars or a beer, have talked about how we have learned so much and experienced so much as salespeople that we have thought for a long time that we would love to share our experiences, our highs and our lows, our goods and our bads with everybody out there who is trying to do the really hard work of sales. And so today is our kickoff episode of a podcast that has been years in the planning. Mike, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm super excited to do this, Rob. Like you said, we've been talking about this for a long time. When we worked together and we were working separate jobs, this was something we've wanted to do. And like you said, I mean, I think for me, the big piece is, having worked side by side with you and sat in several sales meetings where they just talk a lot of stuff, but you don't ever learn anything. And you walk out of there like, why did I just spend an hour and a half in that sales meeting? And so, what I'm looking for this, Robin, I mean, I want folks when they listen to this podcast, when it's over, to be able to take one nugget and go out and use that in their day-to-day sales. Because that's what I look for when I'm in a training or in a podcast. What can I do to take some of that information and implement it today to help me move closer to the sale? And so, over the last 20 years or so, I've been in sales, and like you said, I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of highs, had a lot of lows, and I can't wait to share those with our audience.
That's right. And I'm Robb Ryerse, and like Mike, I've spent a very long time in sales, selling all sorts of different things, and I feel like I've seen it all and have experienced it all. And those of us that have been in sales have those kind of war stories to tell. And this podcast is about us taking our combined 30 plus years of experience in sales in a whole bunch of different fields, from media and advertising, where we first met, to retail, software as a service, real estate. I mean, we have sold finance.
Yeah,
We have sold a lot of different things. We've seen it all, and we know the ups and the downs that salespeople go through. And we know, too, that really the best salespeople are people who are thinking about how to do it better. They're not on autopilot. They are intentionally trying to get better at this craft. And the best salespeople have friends that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can learn from and experiment together. And the best salespeople are ones who are willing to try new things and to experiment with those and see if they work. And
yeah, you're right, Rob. But that's so key.
Yeah, so we decided to start this podcast to give salespeople something to think about, maybe things that they could do better, to be your friends in the business, and and also to share some ideas that we have learned, things that you can experiment with today. This isn't something that, like, eventually maybe you could try this. No, the stuff we're going to talk about is stuff that you can do today. So wherever you're listening, whether it's on Facebook Live or on LinkedIn or YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Spotify, we are so glad to have you along for the ride, and we're looking forward to having this experience together. If you are listening on any of those channels, I would ask you to give us a thumbs up, to write a review on Apple Podcasts, to give us that 5-star rating. It makes a big difference. So each week that we're going to share with you a big idea. We're going to tell some stories that we have experienced, both as salespeople and as people who have bought things and experienced good and bad sales experiences. And we're also going to give you a really clear and practical tip that you can put into practice today.
Yeah, I'm excited, Rob. This is a good topic, so I'm ready to get into it.
Let's jump right in. Our
Yeah.
big idea today is that you, as a salesperson, need to connect the dots for your customers. Mike, when you hear a statement like that, what hits you? What strikes you? Is this something salespeople struggle with? What is this all about?
Yeah, Rob, I think especially for new sales reps as they come into the business, one of the things that we focus on in training them is how great the product is, whatever the product might be. You're talking about the bells and the whistles of the product and why your product is better than somebody else's product. But I think a lot of times we fail to talk to them about, but before you get into the bells and the whistles, do those bells and whistles matter to your customer? Is it going to make a difference for them, right? And so that's what I think about is you have to work with that client to find out those pain points and then help them see how whatever your product is going to solve a problem. It's going to increase revenue. It's going to drive where you can hire new people. So yeah, I think that it's a great place to start this podcast because I think it's one of the key elements in understanding how to connect those dots.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right. The bells and whistles, the products and the features, it is absolutely essential for salespeople to have product knowledge. Like don't take this to think that, that's not the case. You absolutely need to know your product. You need to know your thing. You need to be the expert on it.
Right.
But you can't assume that your customer is. And I think that's that's the mistake a lot of salespeople make is they assume that their customer knows as much about their product as they do. That their customer is going to be able to figure out, okay, I've got this need here. This product's going to be able to solve it. And so many salespeople spend so much time talking about features, talking about benefits, talking about the bells and whistles of the product, that what they don't do is connect that dot between here's what my thing is able to do and here's how that can fix the problem that you have.
Right.
So let me tell you a story. A couple weeks ago, a sales guy who does some of the really hard work of going door to door and chatting with people, came to our house and talked to my wife. He works for a solar panel company, and he knocked on our door, and my wife was gracious enough to chat with him, and for a variety of reasons, she was pretty interested in learning if solar panels would be the right solution for us at our house. We've got a friend who had them installed and is really happy with them, and so she scheduled an appointment with the salesman from the solar panel company. And a few days later, he came to the house and came in and appreciated the fact that he was wearing a mask, appreciated the fact that he kind of kept his social distance from us, and that was a good thing. I think it was like the first time in a year plus that we've had a stranger in our house. And so, we sit down at our dining room table and he, first of all, spends a lot of time kind of telling us his life story, which, okay, I get that he's trying to build rapport. I get that he's trying to build a relationship. I know how this works. He spent entirely too much time there. You've got to be able to read the room and see how the customer's reacting. And
Yes.
And the fact that my phone rang early on and I jumped up and excused myself to take the phone call was an indication that I really wasn't completely tracking with him on where he was and what he was talking about. But so here's the thing. The reason we were interested in exploring solar panels is because we've got to get a new roof. We've got to get a new roof, and we had a hailstorm, I don't know, 9-10 months ago, and our insurance company has approved us to get a new roof. And one of the things that was really interesting to my wife is that this solar panel company is in part owned by a roofing company. and they've got a solution where they do your roof and install the solar panels at the same time. And we are the type of people that think that solar panels are a really good thing, really positive for the environment. And if we can have that solution that we would feel really good about happen at the same time that we needed a roof, well, that's just like, it was just, gravy for us, But for us, the solar panels were the on-ramp for getting a new roof.
Right.
So, connect the dots for us, right? This salesman spent his entire sales presentation talking about how if we get these solar panels, we would be able to eliminate our utility bills. Now, that's a true thing. That is absolutely true. If we had gotten those solar panels, we could, reduce our utility bill, our electrical usage. He walked us through all of that. He showed us how all of that works. But reducing our utility bill wasn't the thing that was motivating us to look at getting solar panels. The thing that was motivating us was, hey, there's going to be guys up on our roof anyways. And this is something we value. It's a part of our value statement as human beings. Let's see if we can bundle this together and get it done.
Right.
And he completely missed that. I mean, we were both as clear as we could be about it. And he did not want to talk about that at all. And you know what? We didn't buy solar panels from him.
Yeah, why do you think he didn't want to talk about that? I mean, you're sitting there with him. I mean, obviously, for sales professional, you got to be just like, dude, you almost got me. Why won't you talk about this?
Well, I think he's one of these sales guys that had memorized, and I say sales guys I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally, so using the word guys is a completely gender neutral thing for me. So he's one of these salespeople who he had memorized the script. He had figured out, he had been told, this is, how you do it. This is how you walk through the sales pitch. Here are the things that you focus on. And certainly, I'm sure that eliminating utility bills is a huge factor for a number of people. It wasn't the factor for us. And what he didn't do is he didn't listen to what was driving us, what was motivating us, what our need was. He just assumed that we had the same need everybody else does. And he never connected the dots between, hey, here's what we can do and here's how it will work for you.
Yeah. I've worked for a company that they gave you a PowerPoint presentation and a script, and they did not want you to deviate from that script at all. You know what I mean? And it really does sometimes just shut people down because, for one person, that script might be perfect. But if you're not talking to that customer to find out, like you said, why do you want the solar panels and what is that on-ramp? I mean, you're going to miss that sale. So I think that illustrates how important it is. Yeah, have a script, know what you want to say, know the product, but listen to your customer. You should not be talking more than the customer is talking, not in that initial meet, right? I mean, you've got to uncover those needs and uncover what's going to be important to them when it comes time for the close. And it sounds like you didn't get any of that from you.
Exactly. And I think you're right on to something, Mike, when you say that, I think one of the reasons why salespeople don't connect the dots for their customers is because they don't listen well. They don't, and I mean, we've all been there, right? Like, this isn't coming off as some big criticism. I mean, we've all had these meetings that have gone horribly bad. Like we know. But you get so focused in on that thing that you want to sell, that idea that you've got, or that solution you've got, those features and those benefits, maybe the thing that worked at the last house. You're so focused in on that. Maybe you're nervous because you're new at this. There's lots of different reasons, but you become so myopic that you fail to listen and see that your customer is saying something, and you can't connect the dots because all you know is where your dot is. You don't know where the customer is, and you have a hard time drawing that line as a result.
Yeah, I've been in sales for a long time, and I think it was probably 6 or 7 years ago when you and I were working in media, and I had an opportunity to go present to a fairly large company for a really biggest ask I've ever done in my career. And I was there with my sales manager, and when I was done with whatever I was talking about, I was out of breath. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm out of breath. That means I was talking for way too long." I never stopped to ask a question. I was just so excited about the idea that we had that I never stopped to say and check in with that customer so that we could build those dots. Like, okay, she likes this part. Let's move on to the next one. And so we get out to the car, and you remember our sales manager, he was like, "Yeah, you talked way too much." And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of thought so when I ran out of breath." So, I know we want to, we're excited about the product. We're excited about the idea, but we do need to slow down a little bit and do those check-ins so that you can connect the dots. Because each one of those check-ins, it's kind of like one of those Mario Kart rally races. You got to get to that first checkpoint, and then you get a little bit more time once you get to that first checkpoint, and you confirm back with the customer that, okay, we're on the same path now. That first dot's connected. Now we're going to get to that next dot. And how do we get there? Through asking some questions and then talking about the product or the service. So
yeah, and this works. This works across the board. I mean, we've done this in media and advertising sales. It's the same thing, in solar panels. It's the same thing in real estate. It's the same thing in automotive. If you've got to find out, why is my customer interested in this? Why are they having this conversation? What is motivating them? What is their dot? And then, listen, I'm the kind of guy that, if I go to buy a car, don't talk to me about engine size, and I'm just not a car guy. That's not the thing for me. So don't even bother talking about that stuff. Talk about the stuff that gets you to that gets you to the point where the thing you're offering meets the need that your customer has. I mean, I'm sure, in real estate it's the same way. It's so easy to talk about, well, how many bathrooms there are. Well, maybe that's not the thing. Maybe, if you're spending all your time talking about yard size and like that's not the driving factor. Like, you've got to understand what is the driving factor for your customer and connect the dots for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, Rob, you took the meeting with the solar panel rep. So you're not taking that meeting.
We wanted to buy solar panels.
You wanted to buy. And it's the same thing with, when someone goes onto the auto lot, they're there to buy. I think, what's that saying? A man walks on the lot lest he wants to buy, and it's the same thing with any industry. If you've got a customer that's wanting to talk to you about your product or services, you have an audience now and they want to buy. But it is your job as the sales rep to figure out why they want to buy and then connect the dots of your product to their need. And when those two come together at that point, then you are definitely ready to move in and ask them for the business. But like you said, even in real estate, it could be the biggest, nicest house on the block, but if it doesn't meet certain needs that they have, maybe they want to be close to family, maybe their kids are getting ready to go off to college. And so why am I showing you this huge house when you're getting ready to downsize? And you only find that out by asking questions. And then once you ask the questions, you as a sales rep, now you can map out, okay, here's where we need to go to get to the end. And at the end, I've connected the dots for them. And here's why I'm showing you this house. Here's why I'm showing you this car. Here's why I'm showing you this insurance policy, whatever it is. As long as you're connecting the dots along the way, asking the questions, when it comes time to ask for the business, I mean, yep. You would have bought those solar panels had he done that. You'd have a new roof and some solar panels going.
Exactly. Up. If he had said, hey, listen, I hear that the thing that is really interesting to you and the thing that's motivating you is that you want a new roof and you want the solar panels because you value that to go along with that. Here's what it would take. Here's what it would look like. And if he had said that, he really, I finally said to him, listen, can you get us a quote on the roof? And he was like, oh, well, I have, and he stumbled and bumbled. It clearly was, maybe it was an area of the business he wasn't comfortable with, but he
Right.
should have called in backup at that point because we were going
Yeah.
to buy. So Mike, let me
Yeah.
ask you this. If connecting the dots is important, figuring out what that customer's needs are, what is motivating them, what the solution is that they need. Do you have any kind of go-to questions that you ask to uncover that? Are there, what are the types of things you might ask somebody before you jump into your spiel? How, like, what might you say to somebody that could uncover some of those things?
Yeah, so when we were in media, I mean, the question I always like to lead with is, I really appreciate you taking the meeting, but what are you hoping to get out of this meeting? What are you looking for from this meeting? I know why I'm here. There's a couple things I want to talk to you about, but before I get into that, why is this important to you? And then they would kind of get into, well, we're growing. Monday nights are not busy for us, and we need to see some growth there. And as I start to listen for those verbal cues of, okay, here are some of the needs, then you just go into questions like, well, tell me more about that. Let them tell you more and let them walk you down the path. And the things that you discover by asking those types of questions, well, tell me more. That's interesting. Can you go into that a little bit more so I can get an understanding? I mean, those are the questions that are going to uncover all of the needs. And then at that point, you can say, okay, which one of these needs is most important to you? Obviously, you have a budget. We may not be able to do it all, but which one of these in a list are most important to you in terms of getting them? And then we just kind of go from there. Once I have that, then I can start to create the solution. But I can't create the solution until I know what their specific problem is, especially from the advertising from. I mean, everybody had a different reason why they wanted to advertise. Some people was just they got an ego and they want to see themselves on TV, and other people's had certain growth that they needed, or they messed out about something they're doing good in the community. So yeah, any one of those definitely would be some good starter questions.
Yeah, I was actually on a sales call yesterday, and it was really interesting because we just kept talking, and it was pretty clear right from the beginning that this thing that I was trying to sell, that like this wasn't going to be a good fit for this particular customer. And we've kind of figured that out within the first couple of minutes, but they were really excited about what I was offering and were really supportive of this idea. And so, we just kept asking questions. We just kept saying exactly the types of things that you said. Tell me more about that, or talk more about that. That's really interesting. Can you say more about that? And this customer, who isn't going to be a customer, eventually talked herself to someone that she knows really well, who she thinks could be the customer. And it was purely just asking questions, not jumping into things and assuming them, but just through conversation being able to uncover what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
And then,
And
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I've watched you do this many times. You don't have a notepad of questions where you're just checking them off. You know what I mean? All of your questions are so conversational and they feel very inquisitive. And I think the customer feels at ease because the questions are coming from a point where you're really seeking to understand. And I think that's so critical, that you're not just checking the box that you asked the question, because a customer can tell when you're not really interested. But when you're really seeking to understand and just asking those genuine questions, it makes a huge difference. And I love watching you do that. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened in this last call.
Exactly. And, but here's the thing. You can't just go through the exercise of asking the questions. Once you're done and you're ready to close, you're ready to make that final pitch. That's when you've got to connect the dots one more time. You've got to be able to say, listen, earlier when we were talking, you mentioned this was a big priority for you. Well, here's how my solution fits with that. You said this was a big pain point. Here's how we can alleviate that. You said this was a big problem that you had. Here's the solution. And ignore all the other features and benefits that aren't a solution to that thing.
Yeah.
Connect the dots for them. Don't leave it to your customer to figure it out for themselves. You do the work of connecting those dots, because when you do, it's going to make them saying yes so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no when the solution in front of you really does solve the problem. Now, you may get into price and things of that nature, but if the solution is right, you can find that happy medium for price.
Absolutely. So, big idea on our inaugural episode of the Bowtie Sales Guys. Connect the dots for your customer. Do that work. Don't let them have to figure it out for themselves. Be the one who goes the extra mile to connect those dots. And when you do, sales are going to follow. Mike, one of the things we want to do each week is give everybody a big idea, not a big idea, but a tip that they can put into practice today. Not, this isn't something I need a bunch of training for and to do eventually. This isn't the type of thing, I've got to work really hard at this and figure this out. No, this is something that today, as a salesperson, I can do better. Something today that will make me a better salesperson. Sometimes it's going to be like a technology tool that we like to use that we're going to say, hey, check this out, try this out. Some days it's going to be a discovery question to ask. Like, here's this diamond in the rough question you got to ask all the customers that you talk to. Sometimes it's just going to be a tip that has made a difference for us. So today's tip is for salespeople to create a personal brand. Now, maybe people might be wondering, why is this podcast called Bowtie Sales Guys? Like, do these guys sell bow? I've never sold bow ties. I don't know about you, Mike. I've never sold bow ties. But we both once worked for a company where we were required to wear a suit and tie. And that's like a whole nother conversation that we can go into at some point. But I realized, like, man, if I've got to wear a suit and tie every day, I need to make that work for me. And the reality is, and this was when I was working in media and advertising, and I was calling on business owners, the average business owner gets dozens and dozens of sales calls every single week. There are dozens and dozens of Robs and Mikes and Sallys and Susans that are walking in their door every single day trying to sell them something that very few of them woke up that morning thinking, I can't live without this. And whether it's a point of sale system or it's advertising or it's insurance or whatever it might be, like these are business owners that every single day they have just an unending line of salespeople coming through their door. And it's so easy to forget all of them. Mm-hmm. To be so easy to be completely forgettable. Oh, yeah. And so the tip for today is to create a personal brand, to give something for your customer to remember you by. So I started wearing a bow tie. I figured nobody else at the office was wearing bow ties. We all had to wear ties every day. I was going to start wearing a bow tie so that at least a customer might remember me as the bow tie guy, as the guy who walked in the door who looked a little bit different from everybody else. And so I created a personal brand of wearing a bow tie. And I love the fact that, Mike, you've jumped on the bandwagon of the bow ties.
I have. When we were there, I was the guy that always wore purple. I had a lot of purple shirts and purple ties. I don't know if you remember that. So that was kind of my thing. But having explored the world of bow ties and all of the options, I was like, I still need something here to differentiate me from everyone else. And what I think is critical, Rob, is once you find whatever that personal brand is, you need to stick to it. Every interaction that you have with a potential customer, if you say that you're the bow tie sales guy, show up in a bow tie.
Yep.
Every time. Build that consistency.
I actually found some, ironically, yesterday when I was looking through a drawer to find some construction paper for my daughter. I had note cards made up with a bow tie on them that when I would send somebody a thank you note after having a meeting with them, they would open it up and there would be that bow tie just reinforcing that brand. Now, it doesn't have to be a color or a piece of clothing. It could be anything. You could be the person who shows up with donuts. You could be the person that, is so friendly that, is if you've ever been to, a retail environment where, salespeople, it feels like you're interrupting them. If you're the one who's friendly, you've got to make yourself memorable in some way. And that's going to look different if you're on a car lot or you're a realtor or if you're in outside sales. It's going to look different. And you've got to make sure that you do it in a way that connects with customers. You don't want to be the Bowtie sales guy if you're going into blue collar businesses all day. You want to make sure that it connects with your customer and also is a reflection of who you are, so it comes naturally. But creating that personal brand to make yourself memorable is so important. And every single one of us today can sit down and say, okay, what can I do to make myself the memorable salesperson? And how can I create that
auto
brand?
business selling cars? There was an insurance guy who every week would come by with this amazing pound cake. Every week or it was a coffee cake, I guess, but every week he was there and his card was on top, and he was the coffee cake guy. I can't remember his name, but I remember the coffee cake guy who brought those cakes. I mean, and Rob, that was 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and I still remember that particular branding of I am the coffee cake guy, and I'm going to deliver it on a consistent basis. Every week I'm going to show up. My card's going to be on top. And I ended up sending him quite a bit of business for people that needed insurance when they were buying a car. And so it works. You just got to be consistent. You got to find your thing, and you just got to do it. And people will remember you. I mean, I think that story right there, 20 years ago, I still remember the pound cake guy or coffee cake guy. So.
Absolutely. So do something that works for you, fits your personality, and do it today. I mean, you can do it today. You can begin to create your personal brand today. And there's no sense, not starting now, right?
Right. And try them out. The first one might not be the right one, but you will find something that is your niche. You will find something that people will remember you by. And when it starts to connect, you'll feel it. And you're like, all right, I got to keep doing this.
That's right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Don't be afraid to experiment. An experiment that fails is still a success. So don't be afraid to experiment. Absolutely. Well, listen, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I hope we've given you some tips and some things to think about. Encourage you as a salesperson. I'd ask you to subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and Spotify. Visit our Facebook page. We're the Bowtie Sales Guys on Facebook. Visit our Facebook page and give it a like. And listen, we know we have been in sales environments. We know that you've got that one buddy, that one friend, that one coworker that it's like the two of you against the world. Well, tell that person about this podcast. And you don't have to share it with all of your coworkers because you don't want them all to be good, right? Because they're not just your coworkers, they're sometimes your competition. But you've got that one that you'd love to, grow with. And so tell them about this podcast and plan to be with us again next week. Mike, any final words for us today?
No, just, best of luck out there selling. I know these are challenging times, but I'm sure that you are all pushing forward. So I wish you the best of luck out there and hope you'll tune in next week.
Absolutely. You got this.